Well, good evening, folks. So you might have saw the thumbnail, a little bit ominous. Some of you might be Star Trek fans, and in the Next Generation, the series that followed the one that was in the late '60s, the enemy became this cyborg species that assimilated all other species. And that was their little tagline: "You will be assimilated." And their spaceships look like these giant cubes. And it's interesting because you can Google this, Abrahamic family house. So if you Google Abrahamic family house, you'll see that there are three, I call them Borg cubes. I'm just making fun. But the one cube is a synagogue, one cube is a mosque, one cube is a Catholic church. And when it was dedicated, it was the first time, to my knowledge, and you can fact check me if I'm wrong in the comments, but to my knowledge, this was the first time in 2,000 years that a Catholic church was named after a living person. It was called the Francis Church. And so and it wasn't referring to Francis of Assisi, it was referring to Francis, who of course recently deceased and was replaced by Leo the 14th. There we have Felix is back.
Yes. So, hi, how are you?
Hey, Felix. Yeah, actually, we're awful for not connecting right before our show sometimes. And I did. See, like, you're right on top of the ball, Felix. It's very, very good. So, this is a bigger deal. Like, it's one of these weird things, right? Like, you sound like such a turkey if you criticize it, because it sounds like, well, isn't it great that everybody's getting along and fellowship? I mean, I'm old enough now, I'm in my mid-50s, and I grew up in an area where the Protestants and the Catholics didn't like one another. It was a different era, and we don't even think like that anymore. But my parents, the opposite side would throw rocks at each other's school buses. It was just a very, weird time. And all of that's gone away, and that's a good thing that happened post-Vatican II. And as the church sort of became a little more Protestant in its praxis, Protestants were less threatened by it. And so both sides started to get along a little bit better. That, and plus, religion ceased to be as key a part in the day-to-day life of many people in Western countries. But there's been a real problem with this notion of all religions are the same. And it's really didn't enter into Catholic circles too strongly until the 60s. And it's almost unspoken, wouldn't you say, Felix? I mean, it's not like you go into a church and you hear that everybody's God's the same, but it's sort of this implicit thing. Basically, as long as you're kind, almost everybody goes to heaven. And that's the modern teaching, that everybody goes to heaven and that all religions lead to the same place. And my first problem with that is the first commandment, because one of the things I would say, if you get anything out of the time with Felix and I, one of the things, and I know most of you know this intellectually, but it's getting this into your heart. What does living that first commandment mean? And that means no false gods before the true God. And that goes for certain attachments to the world and the created order. But it also goes with this notion of confusing religions with one another just so we can get along. And I never really understood it. So if you guys want to explain it to me, then please do in the comments, and Felix will weigh in a little bit later too. But I never really, I was brought up to agree to disagree. So if you disagree with me, I don't hate you. I'm not angry at you for disagreeing with me. We might start off at a very different set of starting points. And I was brought up, I mean, I took this for granted that that's how everybody thought, that you just agree to disagree if you know. But of course, I mean, try it now in today's polarized society. And so those of us who really call out this, what the $6 word for it is syncretism, the idea that all religions are the same. It's like the coexist sticker. Like, no one's against the idea of everybody getting along or coexisting. What we're against is you don't put the true God equal with everybody else's false gods. Oh, but you can't say that. Who are you to say your God's real? Well, because it's the truth. And I mean, you either witness to the truth or you witness, the minute you start compromising on this stuff, it all falls apart. And the problem is that's what's happened to postmodern Christianity. It doesn't have a zeal for souls. It has a zeal for recycling. It has a zeal for, migration, but it doesn't have a zeal for souls. And that's a big scandal because, the Catholic Church is going through a little bit of a uptick again in membership, but a lot of that is stampeding Protestants out of, liberal Protestantism, which is imploding. There'll really be two religions left. There'll be Christianity with, basically Orthodoxy and Catholicism, and most liberal Protestant denominations will probably disappear. And there may be a segment of non-denominational, but it'll be interesting to see how it evolves. And then, of course, there'll be the rise of Islam, which, with God's good help, hopefully we win a lot of those over to Christianity. So the thing is that it should concern every Christian, this notion of lumping everybody's religion in together, in the sense that, the baptized should know what their church is for, where their duty lies. And so Felix is here with me, and after I lay this out, we're gonna address any questions or comments, or if you disagree, that's fine too. Again, this is not intended to cause any growling. I am poking a little fun with my my opening. I don't know if you call it opening credits, but the buffer that we need when you do a live stream, and also the thumbnail. But I want to really lay it home because, like, the coincidence of the cubes are just a bit too much, and especially when in the secular order, the equivalent of this, the World Economic Gathering, which sometimes goes by the term forum, it encourages basically this kind of global governance for efficiency's sake. Take care of the environment. You'll own nothing and be happy. You don't need private automobiles anymore. You don't need air conditioning in many cases. And you basically government-controlled housing that you'd be given credits and you all allocate it. And there's some serious questions which are beyond the scope of today, but it might be worth some time together in a future show. And with the rise of AI, what happens in terms of how do people make their living? So that's because of the anxiety that people have when they see economies falling. What's going on in Canada, for example, is that they're trying to, again, feel free to correct me. I'm not an economist, but as I observe it, you have a person who believes in the goals of the World Economic Gathering, in Prime Minister Carney. And basically what he's trying to do is change the Canadian economy to be for this new carbon economy. And as a result, he's impoverishing tens of millions of people. And he's doing it in real time in front of everybody. And there's really not much that people can do about it. And it's right on the border of the US. So it's a very interesting thing. I guess the plus of it is that hopefully when it, not that I'm hoping that things collapse and people are miserable, but hopefully the good that'll come out of the collapse that I expect to happen is that, the US and other Western countries will realize, hey, this was kind of stupid. But we'll see. But like with socialism, they often say, well, we just didn't implement it right. We'll just try better next time. And of course, that never ends well. So in 1907, there was a fellow named Monsignor Robert Hugh Benson. And he was, get this, he was the son of the Archbishop of Canterbury. So that's the head of the Episcopalians and the Anglican Communion. And he converted to Catholicism, and he was one of the most brilliant minds of his era. He wrote a pile of books. But the one that he's most famously known for is Lord of the World, because it's the one book in 2,000 years of church history that 3 popes, or, bishops of Rome, have recommended. And 2 of those said that these events are unfolding today. So I think it's just very interesting, because if you read the book, and I hope you do, it's called Lord of the World, and it's Hugh Benson, published in 1907. It's 99 cents on Kindle. I don't get a cut. And I encourage you to read that book. And Felix and I keep semi-threatening you guys that we're going to do a commentary on it. So maybe we should. But because I'm always mentioning it. But I mention it because, again, it's a fiction. It's a fiction. It's not, really styled as a prophecy per se. But it's kind of like 1984 or, A Brave New World or whatever. It's one of these books that saw beyond time. It saw movements well ahead, like Jules Verne and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea predicted basically a nuke submarine. And you've got Benson showing us this new global church that's reinventing itself to be synodal and more, useful to humans. But in the process of doing so, it's being less useful to God and for the people that actually believe in the old faith. So the thing is that Benson describes a future where humanity achieves peace, but it's a peace of the grave. A charismatic leader emerges as promising unity, ending war, solving poverty. And it sounds great, right? Like who's against this stuff? Except there's a catch. This unity requires one thing, the complete elimination of the supernatural. And religion isn't violently persecuted. That'd be too obvious. Instead, it's evolved into something more mature, more human-centered. Now, what do you think happened to the Christian church in the 1960s? It right in front of our nose. Everything is done. How many here have heard the phrase, God helps those who helps themselves? Have you heard that phrase, Felix?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Plenty of times.
What part of the Bible is it in?
I don't think it's in the Bible at all. I'll be honest.
You're so good. He's right. It's not. I don't know if he coined it, but he certainly quoted it. Benjamin Franklin. And Benjamin Franklin was a deist. What's a deist? A deist is one who believes in a God and a creator, but that creator doesn't intervene. So he was, in other words, they believe everything can be explained by science. And Catholics and other traditional Christians, like Orthodox and even many non-denominationals and whatever, still believe in an actual supernatural and preternatural. You may say, well, what's the difference between supernatural and preternatural? Supernatural refers to things of God. Preternatural refers to the things of the demonic. And sometimes we use supernatural as a catch-all. Like if you open up your beer fridge and you see Zool from the movie Ghostbusters, you might describe it as a supernatural experience, but it's technically a preternatural experience. And so, we've lost sight of the supernatural. And the supernatural, actually our science as it evolves gives us more explanations of how the supernatural might be. Like, for example, Tucker Carlson, I don't watch everything he does, but my understanding is he acknowledges, the existence of angels and demons. Well, isn't this interesting that you have a fellow that's not really that churchy that acknowledges these things? How else are these things conceived? If we were going to use scientific language, we would call them interdimensional beings. But that's all they are. They're angels and demons. So the thing is that, they're created beings. They're not gods. And they have influence over human affairs in certain respects. There's certain that we maintain. There's rules that we're not completely privy to, but an exorcist would be able to tell you a lot more than I on sort of the specifics. But there are certain kinds of restraints that these things have and certain kinds of permissions they have. And the reasons why we'll fully understand, hopefully, at the end of our earthly sojourn. But see, the thing is that this human-centered religion really took hold, and we got to place the blame where blame is due. Okay, so I'm a big fan of the school of thought that if your team is the one that peed in the pool, and you admit it, because the thing is back in the day, I was a reserve chaplain in the military, and I used to have a fight with a Baptist. And it was a good fight. He and I mentioned him several times over the last year and a half that we've been on YouTube with Felix and I. I mentioned him before. His name was Daryl. And we became really good friends. But we would have at least a couple time weekly fight over scripture. No, mostly the interpretation of the Gospel of John, because that's where Baptists and Catholics have some disagreements. And they were good fights. And what I mean by that is none of us insulted the other one personally. None of us presumed that the other guy wasn't trying to serve God and live the first commandment, because we had a trust in one another and there was a friendship. That was a really neat experience. Why? Because you could have a fair and honest argument just about the theology and the scripture itself. And if you look at Twitter or most social media, or even at your dinner or your Thanksgiving table, what do you see? You see people hurling poo at one another, getting mad at one another, insulting one another, accusing each other of being evil, or, you know, having some, or being stupid, or you didn't read enough here and here and here. And when you go there, when you switch your debate from the policy or the idea to the person, you've lost. Basically, the first person that does it, it basically means that you don't have anything that you can counter the other individual with, in most cases. So anyway, we used to have these fights, and here's the problem. And like I say, they were good fights. They were friendly. We're still friends, you know. But here's the thing: is that somewhere along the line, the church became more human-centered, and I believe in the West, it's the Catholic Church that has to take the blame for this. And it's not that there weren't flaky Protestants. There was lots of them, but the church had for so long been the anchor. And Christianity, in fact, when Francis started being a little crazy, Francis was known for being a little crazy. I mean, even if you were a fan, I mean, the man would get on a plane and he'd talk to journalists and it'd be like, oh my goodness, you know, you were just lucky that he didn't declare a fourth person of the Trinity or something. It was wild plane rides. So what happened was, in the Francis days, one of the conservative theologians of the Anglican Church, and for those who don't know, the Anglican Communion, again, it includes what we know in the United States as Episcopalians. One of their conservative theologians begged Francis, please stop changing certain things because you're messing us up. And it was kind of interesting because, there was all this effort to try to unite Christianity under various kind of ecumenical schemes. And for a variety of reasons, they just can't work. One of the practical reasons was the issue of female ordination, which of course is another issue because there's the Archbishop of Canterbury now is a female. And of course that shuts anything down with any kind of normative Catholic. But anyway, I don't get too far down that route. What I'm getting at is that the church itself, it started accommodating the world so much that the cracks begin to show when you try to evangelize Protestants. They try to evangelize me, I try to evangelize them. As the things got weirder, especially under Francis, it was like your legs were cut out from under you. I joke because one of the apologists, and for those who don't know, apologist means a person that defends the faith, right? So one of the apologists I used to follow in the 90s and early 2000s, I mean, he was so, well, he never said this was the reason, but let's put it this way. Under the Francis years, the guy stopped talking about catechism. He started talking about space aliens. Well, why wouldn't you? I mean, you can't win the arguments. That it's a moving target. And so the faith that we used to consider immutable, it was like spin the wheel. What are we going to believe next week? And so it was a real scandal. But there are some that say, well, you shouldn't air this dirty laundry. You shouldn't air Catholic dirty laundry. I mean, some Protestant is going to take you out of context and going to insult the church. Listen, the sunlight is the disinfectant. And if we don't own what we did to Christianity as the Catholic community, how is this going to get better? The institution has failed Christianity. The Catholic institution is supposed to be the store to the deposit of faith. And this, even non-Catholics would look to the Catholic Church, to answer certain things that they themselves hadn't considered before. I mean, even Prince Charles and Lady Diana, before Prince Charles was King Charles, he even consulted the Vatican on whether he and Diana could get an annulment. They had no expertise or capacity in their own communion for this. And same thing happens. A friend of a friend, it's only one person removed from me, Lutheran pastor, got involved in a major exorcism by accident, and basically realized he was out of his league. Who do they call? They call the Catholics, because we have expertise in that area. So it's kind of interesting, because even if you're not a Catholic yourself, there's this understanding that in the West, Catholicism is sort of the senior church of Christianity. And most churches who aren't Catholic define themselves by what they are not, vis-a-vis Catholicism. So the old faith has become an embarrassment to the new church. And those who cling to it are seen as obstacles to human progress and to the great unity that'll save us all. In fact, some of you follow Dr. Anthony Stein, his YouTube channel, Return to Tradition. I didn't see the show yet, but I saw the thumbnail, and it basically said, oh yeah, Bishop cancels all Latin masses because it's a threat to unity. Well, I mean, this is how these guys are rolling. Unity to what? Unity to what? I mean, if you're a little lemming and you're stampeding off the cliff, I don't see any advantage of being in union with the lemmings, right? So you've got to be a servant of the truth before you worry about unity. You've got to be clear on what the truth is, and then you find your fellow brothers and sisters who are united in that truth, and that's who you're in union with. And so again, that's one of the areas that I'll agree to disagree with some of my Novus Ordo friends, because jeepers, guys, like how do you defend Francis and Leo? I don't know. I don't hate either of these guys. I pray for these. I pray for Francis. I pray for Leo. I think we met in person. I tease him a little bit, and my Twitter stuff. It's funny. I'll say something, I'll throw a little dart, and then somebody retweets the tweet to Leo. Yeah, thanks. I didn't mean it as a personal insult to him, but it's like, yeah, I'll certainly stand by everything I said. But my job here is not to insult him, but it is to make you aware that there's some deviation between what the church used to teach, and everybody's handling it in a different way. And so we'll talk about that a little bit at comment time. So in Benson's vision, back to Lord of the World, the institutional church, or most of it, goes along with this human centricism. And the idea is that the cardinals in the book praise the new humanitarian religion. Paul VI in real life took off the tiara in the late 1960s and surrendered it, and then spoke in a subservient position to the United Nations. And then his speech still exists on the Vatican website. You can look it up. He refers to the UN as the world's greatest hope, not the kingship of Christ. So as you can understand, if you believe in Catholicism, this is a very disturbing thing. And even good people do bad things, right? So this was a bad thing. So bishops celebrate dialogue with the emerging world order, and they're so desperate to be relevant to have a seat at the table. Google who Francis and Leo appoints to the Academy of Life, this Roman Academy of Life. It's horrible, guys. Like, if I was an atheist, and even if I was a center-left atheist, which I certainly am not, even I would be able to look at these appointments and say, what's this guy doing? He's actually appointing enemies. What's he doing? It doesn't make any sense from an institutional point of view unless there's another agenda at play. So I encourage you to do your own homework. And you'll probably come to the same things I've seen. I'm steering you in the direction of where you can get the information for yourself, so that you don't think I'm just telling you stuff. I want you to do your own homework. And so the thing is that, the bishops are so desperate to be relevant and to have a seat at the table, to be invited at the politicians' cocktail dinners and so crap like that, that they don't notice that they've traded the altar of sacrifice for a conference table. There was a bishop, his name was Baker. As soon as I heard the story, I was so excited. I said, I've got to meet this guy. And he was in Alabama. I'd never met him, but I read this article and I was just so impressed with him, because this was after the Theodore McCarrick incident. There were hearings, and he listened. It's kind of like a school board meeting. Every bishop has so many minutes to speak at the microphone. He got up and he used his time to say, I've been sitting here for a couple days. I haven't heard the name of our Lord Jesus once. Do you think we might be able to fit him in here somewhere? And when I heard that, I was like, wow, this guy is courageous and he's on the right track. And then I come to find out, yeah, he was only 3 months from retirement. So they all get brave near retirement. And the ones that do it younger, like Bishop Strickland and Bishop Torres in Puerto Rico, they get fired and end up living with family. So it's the way it rolls. And so the thing is that the center of this new religion that they seem to be creating, and they're doing it slow enough that, some people notice and some people don't, right? The thing is, they do it. We used to say in seminary that fighting with modernists is like debating with Jello. They shift gears so much. Well, I didn't say that. Oh, where did you get this? No, listen, I've been around. I've been in the business for over 30 years. I've seen it all. And it's a lot of this weaselry, and a lot of these people know exactly what they're doing. And so the thing is that the center of this new religion is not God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, but humanity itself. This notion that humanity is evolving some sort of under the Holy Spirit or whatever spirit they're invoking. And they say that the Spirit talks to people like through the democratic process. That is not how it normally works. I mean, the apostles did draw lots for their successor when they had to replace Judas and the like, but they decided and confirmed this among themselves too, right? From the group, the ones that they chose, they vetted first themselves. It was not a big vote of the community. And likewise, the church, heaven's a hierarchy, so is the church, and so is the properly ordered social structure in the secular realm. We're not an equality like our friends, the reasonably priced stonemasons are. How would we call them, Felix? Or the wearers of the apron philosophy?
Oh, okay. Stonecutters too.
Yeah, the stonecutters. They believe in this deistic syncretism that all religions lead to the same God. And I completely reject this. So Benson was writing fiction, but sometimes fiction is just truth that hasn't happened yet, like Jules Verne taught us with 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. So let's get a little specific. I'm not asking you to take my word for anything. In fact, I'm encouraging you, if anything, take this as an invitation to do your own homework, your own research. So let's look at the UN partnership. The Vatican has a formal observer status at the United Nations. Fine, right? Diplomacy, goodwill, but it goes deeper. In 2015, the Vatican just didn't endorse the UN Sustainable Development Goals. It became one of their most vocal cheerleaders. Francis' encyclical Laudato Si was released strategically timed with the UN's climate agenda. And this is the problem. The language in that document is striking, and it's horrible. And Francis would get up there and berate people for having air conditioning. Like, you try to live in Florida or a lot of these hot countries, like, if you're really, really young or really old, he can kill you. But somehow, cow farts and air conditioners were harmful to humanity, and God doesn't like them, apparently. And I'm exaggerating, but you know where I'm getting at. The World Economic Gathering, which is sometimes called a forum. I'm saying it like this because, again, I don't want to flag our hosts at YouTube. And the former, they deposed him, this former Carl Schwab. Under his leadership, they produced a video. I haven't found it lately, so actually maybe Felix can find it. But as we're talking here, but there's a video, and it's short. It's like 2 minutes, and basically it's about you will own nothing and be happy. So it had formal partnerships with the Vatican, and it had something like their leader bragged about penetrating the Canadian cabinet. There was, and it has the majority of Western leaders. And what they do is they invite both parties, right? So they try to basically sponsor for these leadership conferences. They want to mold and build networks among world leaders. And that sounds great, right? Fellowship, you get stuff done. But the problem is there's an agenda here. And if you dig into it, we don't have time tonight. But I'll tell you, the stuff that they believe is wild. Everything from their notions of property, their notions of money, their notions of privacy, their notions of digital ID, their notions of who can be allowed to be reproduce, their notion of not being able to own private automobiles or have a frequent visit your family with an airplane. You're only allowed a trip maybe once every couple years. 15-minute cities sounds great on certain levels. A lot of this stuff sounds really great, but the problem is that it comes at a tremendous cost. The state motto for New Hampshire, Felix, do you know what the state motto of New Hampshire is?
Oh, it's something really base, isn't it? Like, I can't remember exact.
Live free or die.
Cool. Live free or die. That's right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So the thing is that this WEF wants to do something they call a Great Reset. And this is so contra what Catholic social teaching is. And I should give you my bias here. So some of you, if you're a first-time viewer, I'm incredibly biased, but I will, do I use the word bias? We all have our point of view. But let's put it this way. I always disclose my angle with you, okay? So my angle is that I distrust anything that comes out of Christianity post 1960. I have to take a really strong look at it. And secondly, I will say this, and I can't stand Marxism, can't stand anything to do with left stuff. I think it's complete hogwash. I think it's enslaving. I think it uses the poor as a prop, and it uses hardworking people as a prop. And I think it's enslaving. So that's my, oh yeah, we'll play that in just a sec. I'll just finish my little rant here. But the thing is that when I say Catholic social teaching, I'm referring primarily to Leo the 13th and derivative thinkers from him. So anything that aligns with what Leo would believe, I'm behind, and anything that's not, I'm suspicious of. So Felix is going to show you this clip. Here we go.
The 20th, I hope I will have the pleasure still to be invited for the meeting when we meet for the 20th Governance Summit. You will use the app like Uber, but not anymore to call some driver, but automatically guided car, a self-driven car, will come to your hotel or wherever you are and will bring you to the airport. No, Los Angeles is one of the cities with the heaviest traffic, who told me in 2030 Los Angeles will be private car driven free. And this will allow to transform highways into parks and other public spheres.
Oh, okay. I thought he was going to say that you will own nothing line. That's what I was looking
Yeah,
for.
there
But
is
that is a piece of that in there.
Yeah, there is the ad. So see if you can find that while I'll finish off this little briefing here. But I mean, some of the stuff that Herr Klaus says, you know, actually you can't make this stuff up. His dad actually was with the bad guys in Germany of those times. Yeah, it's pretty funny. So if you look into this, again, look this stuff all up. It's an interesting ride. But I mean, some of the ideas make sense on paper, right? But the thing is, you know, and the church should care about poverty. I agree. And the church should take care of the poor. I agree. And environmental stewardship, we agree. Felix and I agree on this. You know, I like to see, I don't like to see litter or garbage or debris. I like to see a clean ocean, clean, sewage treatment and stuff like that. It's a pet peeve of mine. There's a province up in Canada. They go on and they lecture everybody else about the environment, and they pour raw sewage in the ocean. It just drives me nuts. It's like, until you guys clean up the stuff that almost everybody else does properly, shut your mouth, because we don't want to hear it from you bunch of hypocrites. But anyway, the thing is that there's legitimate applications of this notion of environmental stewardship right from the book of Genesis and a number of saints. But there's a crucial difference between saying that Christians should care for creation and that we need a global governance structure that will manage human behavior to save the planet. And you see what they're doing is, it's kind of clever, but evil. They're using the climate as the scheme to give everybody the one world religion. Because when you think about it, we're not going to all agree on whether it's Zeus or Odin or the true God of our Lord Jesus that Athanasius described, or whether it's Islam or Judaism or Buddhism or whatever. But almost everybody should be able to agree on the environment, right? So that's sort of how they're backdooring this one world order religion. And it's kind of crazy. It's like, again, no one's against environmental stewardship, but they actually want to deindustrialize and impoverish us. And they use the poor as the excuse. Well, you know what? The solution for the poor is to lift them up into the middle class. It's not to keep all of us down into the poor class. So this is a bit ridiculous. And so there's a language shift. So if you read the recent documents in the church, count how many times you see human fraternity, like the stonecutters, global solidarity, our common home, integral ecology, synodality. Now count how many times you see salvation, sin, redemption, eternal life, the cross, or even the holy name of our Lord Jesus. You look at these documents. Oh my goodness, folks. Like this, if you do your homework, you may have started this video thinking this guy's crazy. And if you do your homework, you're going to say, oh my goodness, I had no idea. And that's why I'm telling you. So, you know, these old words have almost disappeared entirely. You know, we used to say that when our Lord Jesus was going to come again in glory, that he was going to come in a day of wrath. You never hear language like that anymore. That all went, I think 1971 was the last time we had an official prayer book with a line like that in there. And now it's all just happy bunny and everything is beautiful like a Lego movie. It's crazy. So the thing is that the emphasis has shifted in Christianity, and it's not just Catholics. The Catholics started this in the West with their silly Vatican II, but it just snowballed, and all the Christian groups are impacted now. The telos, the ultimate goal, your direction has changed. It's no longer save souls for heaven. It's to create a sustainable, equitable world system. You see the big difference? Now reread the first commandment. Read John chapter 1, and you tell me whether those goals of modern Christianity are in line with what the scripture and the council of the church teach. And then there's the Abu Dhabi document. So in the thumbnail, you'll notice there's the 3 Borg cubes, and then I put the silly spaceship Borg up there too. And Felix showed you the picture earlier on. In 2019, Pope Francis signed a joint declaration with the Grand Imam of Al-Azhar. It was a beautiful gesture of dialogue, right? Except for one line that should have set off alarm bells. The pluralism and diversity of religions are willed by God. That's what the modern church teaches. There's a problem with that. Oh, good, you have that. Well, just let me finish this point. So here's the problem. And Leo said it too. And you know what? I do not mean to bash on Leo. Listen, after Francis, we just wanted somebody that was going to upset us every day. But I got to tell you, Leo, at least Francis was sort of blunt. But Leo was a much kinder, nicer Francis. Like Francis used to have these tantrums and stuff. Leo, from everything I've heard, he prays. He's a nice man, But here's the thing. He said that the church has always taught freedom of religion. It has not. Now, that doesn't mean that freedom of religion is, it depends on what you have to define it and talk about its scope. But just him saying that is not, it's just a factually incorrect statement. Like, unless we own our past and understand our past, how can we have a future that's credible? If these people don't know their past, if they don't know their theology of the past, they don't know the history of their past, they don't have the context, and they're making decisions for the church, which is rooted on the past as its basis. And if they say that, oh, well, we have a different authority, we have a different idea, we have a different religion, well, then, okay, so if the previous 1900, 2000 years were wrong, why should we listen to you now? Your whole authority was based on that old religion that you now reject. And this is the crisis, you see. This is why when they say they have all these people coming in, they're going to leave. There's like 8 adults leave for every 1 adult convert in the modern Catholic Church. Depending on the region, it's like between 6 and 8 people leave. So let's watch this. This is the one, Felix. So you play this, put it on, crank up the volume on it, because I don't know if I'm not hearing it loud or not. But yeah, there you go. This is a real treat. Well, that's right. We might not have. Now I think about Felix, we probably get copyrighted to use the music. So if it's subtitled, just.
Fuck me! What do you mean? What it will feel like? It will hurt. What
You think?
Okay. Sorry. I guess we have a little technical difficulty. But anyway, yeah, now that I think about it, it's probably good that Felix leaves the sound off. But maybe he can put the link in the comments, and you guys can view it for yourself. But it's really wild what these guys are planning. Okay, we're going to do take 2, Felix.
Yeah, again, no sound. That's really weird. Yeah, I wonder.
That's all right. You know what? It'll save us a copyright strike or whatever.
Yeah, that's one.
So, I mean, some of the stuff doesn't sound so bad. But you see what they really don't like the U.S. being on the top of the pile.
That's right.
Now, some of the stuff is neat. 3D printed organs from your own cells. That's not necessarily a bad idea.
Much less meat.
Yeah, they don't want to eat meat.
Yay! An occasional treat, not a staple.
Meanwhile, don't worry, all the rich people will still have it. They won't let you fly in the airplane, but they get their private jet. Integration of refugees, pay for the carbon dioxide. And this is it. This is why poor Alberta wants to join the United States now, because they're just trying to own nothing and be happy. Well, I'm sorry. We're just not accepting this. Part of it is, I think, in a weird sense, it's probably fitting that the reason why I chose the Borg and the Star Trek reference is just simply because the buildings are like cubes, right? And also it fits into a simulation of other cultures and making everybody the same. So that's why I used it. But the truth is, whether people are religious or not, these so-called progressives, they really do want to adopt a Star Trek utopia. And the idea that, you work if you want to, and, everybody's prosperous and everybody just lives sort of a casual life of leisure, and the really intrepid ones go and explore space. But, if you just want to sit and be an artist, then go ahead. And it's such a, I mean, on one level, it's an interesting thought or interesting hope. But people don't realize, they really should rewatch that movie, The Matrix, because that Matrix, in spite of its creators not realizing what they created, there's a lot of wisdom in that movie and that first Matrix movie, because one of the things that came out was for those who don't know, the Matrix, the movie is about like basically an AI group, a bunch of computers took over the world. They put humans in pods to use them as living batteries, but gave them, stimulated their brain. So they thought they were living in a simulation. They thought they were living in the real world. Well, one of the interesting vignettes in that movie is that the AI was explaining to the protagonist that in earlier programs, they made everybody rich, made everybody happy. They gave you everything you wanted. And they found that the simulation broke down. People needed struggle to overcome. And it is kind of in our nature, right? We need something to build. Like if you're told, I'll retire you off at full pension at a young age, initially everybody's like, wow, lucky am I? But, if you're a productive person, after about 2 weeks of fishing or visiting some relatives, it's time to find something else to do. I always get a kick out of it, in my role as clergy. I get to meet a lot of different families and a lot of different, I love this saying. You can steal it, by the way. Everybody's family's normal till you get to know them. And I love that saying because it's so true. But, different families operate different ways. And one of the funny ones is that was how retired people, if a couple has a workaholic and then they suddenly retire, it's like the partner will say, oh man, you got to get him out of the house, right? Because he's driving me nuts. So they wanted to have a hobby or something because they're so used to just their space. So it's kind of cute when they're, especially if you have a little tiny house and all of a sudden you got two people there when one used to have the rule of the roost and the other one was out. So the thing is that Leo came up with this recent encyclical called Dilexi Te, I Have Loved You. And it's supposed to be about devotion to the Sacred Heart, which is a beautiful theme, the infinite love of our Lord for humanity. But when you read it closely, what you discover is that the document conflates our Lord's universal love with an absolute mandate for open borders. It hints at it. It doesn't come out and, actually say that, but it's pretty much does. And so it presents any defense of national sovereignty or keeping your community safe, any attempt to maintain a cultural cohesion, any concern about assimilation rates as fundamentally unmerciful. And that if you love as Christ loves, the argument goes, you cannot place limits on migration. To do so is to betray the heart of our Lord. And this is false theology. There is an order of love, an order of charity. And, one of the greatest crises, see, if Leo was prophetic, I'm going to offend some people here, and I don't intend to offend you, but I also intend to tell you the truth, and we can agree to disagree. If Leo was prophetic, you know what he would, actually, I'm going to ask Felix, and it's okay, Felix, if we have a different view. What do you think the one thing, and again, this is our opinions, right? The
Sure.
one thing that Leo could have called folks to consider valuing instead of open borders?
Praying the rosary daily.
Sure. Okay. So some sort of spiritual effort in the sense of anthropology, in sense of, okay, let's take our faith out of it for a moment.
If we take out, okay, all right. Besides open borders, how about I don't know. I would say crime. Uptick
Right?
in crime. Yeah.
Sure. So
justice for the victims.
So that's a complicated thing, right? But I mean, you're right on. Like, first of all, housing should be affordable. I love it. I forget who said this. It's not me. I stole it, and I apologize. I don't mean to. It was done to me this week. Someone stole one of my things with attribution. But
nice.
Yeah. No, but did you like how I answered that? Did you see that on Twitter, Felix?
Yeah.
It was pretty good. I went to the guy who stole it. And I just put wise words.
Wise words.
That's all I said.
Yep.
Yeah. But anyway. But back to this is that someone said, you know, the measure of a good economy is whether a 27-year-old can afford a house on one income, provide for a family, and you know, and is in his own home. That's not GDP. So I like that, because, you know, GDP is it can be manipulated, right? Like Canada on paper has a half decent GDP, but people are poor. The ordinary people, the quality of life in the last 20 years has plummeted. It used to have a standard of living the same as the United States. That's all gone in the last 10 years in particular. So, you know, and this is just right across our border. So it's pretty crazy. So, no, what I would say is, like, you know, Elon Musk has spoken about this. Jordan Peterson has spoke about this. I speak about it all the time. But again, I'm not big enough that anyone would notice. But and that is the demographics. We need to increase our fertility rate. We need to have more children as a civilization. And if you just replace it with unassimilated newcomers, you're going to end up with a different culture. And you may say, well, you know, if you complain about that, you know, you're the R word. I don't even know if we can say that on Facebook, so I'm just going to call it the R word. And it's like, this has nothing to do with it. You know, it's not about, you know, I thinking that a particular culture, or let's take the R out of it and just talk about, you know, faith and the idea of the general notion of the baptized or people driven of that. You want a society that shares values. So migration always works when you accept the people that are compatible. So you vet them, you background check them, and then you let them know that the rules of this deal are, you're coming here to assimilate. I was watching Portland. Some of you guys have probably seen some video in Portland. One side was flying American flags. The other side was flying Mexican flags. What's the problem with that here? Well, the problem is we're not in Mexico, right? Nothing against Mexicans, you know. It's you know, the thing is that, you know, you don't see me flying Irish and Scottish flags or Canadian flags. Oh, I have a protest against the United States. Oh, I get politics I don't like. I'm going to fly a Canadian flag or a Scottish flag. That's ridiculous. So why are you flying a Mexican flag? Right. It's ridiculous.
Isn't it also like your duty? Like I don't know if it was you who said it or someone else, but when you do move to another country to adapt to assimilate to them, you know what I mean, or you know, to take on the culture and to, you know, to show respect.
It's fine to share, you know, an idea, right? Like, I mean, it's fine to share an idea, but you gotta, I think you gotta know your place when you come to a country. I'm a newcomer. I'm a legal migrant, and you give up your old. You know, the only thing I can say about, you know, Canada has an idea that they do with their government people that I think most Americans would agree with. And it's just something that they I think, and they did better, and that we can learn from them. And this one thing, no politician is allowed to trade their own stocks, and no, like, senior bureaucrats allowed to, and no intelligent agent, any government job that you have access to private information about markets, you're not allowed to have your own investment account. It all has to go into a blind managed account. And that is, you know, something like there would be no Nancy Pelosi's in Canada in that respect. Now that said, there's a guy, I'm talking about a rabbit hole. Where's my little beer glass that says rabbit hole on it? There is a guy, if you guys Google or search on YouTube, Moose on the Loose, he's a Canadian, he's in BC, total aside, off topic. And he does this, he does this analysis of all the conflicts of interest in the government. And that guy, my goodness, I don't know of any amateur journalist that puts so much work in his craft. He's got this great big chart. You can sign on to it. And he's got this great, he calls it a moose chart. And it's got all the connections. It's kind of like a murder investigation board. He's got all these connections of all these companies that these politicians are all into, and who's the donor of who and all this kind of stuff. It's really wild. But I mean, you know, and in the information age, we can find this stuff out a lot more easy. What I'm saying is the church is neck deep in this stuff, right? As well. It should be above it, but it's not. And when they start issuing documents claiming God's authority over, leftist political causes, and that's a problem. So the traditional Catholic teaching, and I mean the stuff from like Leo the 13th and Pius the 11th, the actual magisterium, realize that nations have a right and duty to self-preservation, right? It's not one of selfishness, but a proper ordering of charity. You have a greater obligations to those nearest to you, your family, your community, your nation, than to those that are far away. This isn't cruelty. This is the structure of reality. It's how God set it up. St. Thomas Aquinas teaches that charity is ordered. You love God first, then those closest to you in descending circles of responsibility. A father who feeds strangers while his own children starve isn't virtuous. He's disordered. Do you realize, especially in England and Canada, that illegal migrants are getting paid thousands of dollars a month while there's homeless veterans and little old ladies that can't get prescription medication in the home, and that is a disordered thing. It's a disordered thing. You take care of your own people. And for goodness sakes, don't welcome millions of people if you don't have the infrastructure to welcome, take care of them. Hospitals, schools, housing, transportation. And so, U.S. comparatively, I mean, people give the U.S. a hard time for its immigration issues, but compared to like Britain or France or Canada, the U.S. does excellent. It's certainly just doing a lot better now. All it took was a few alligators, right, Felix?
Hey, that's right.
Had to get the alligators in there. So,
Amen.
and Dilexi Te and documents like this present a vision where mercy has no borders, no limits, no practical considerations. It's mercy as pure sentiment. It's divorced from prudence. It's divorced from justice. It's divorced from the actual sustainability of the social structures, the infrastructure itself. You want it. It's like it. I use this image all the time. You're on the airplane and the airplane depressurizes, right? What did the stewardess tell you to do? You take down the mask, you put it on your face before you help somebody else. Why? Why do you do that? Why aren't you going to be the selfish or selfless person and go, oh, I must help my fellow man before I take the oxygen? No, you idiot, because then you're both going to pass out. So you put the mask on and then you tend to the person that needs help. And it's the same way for your spiritual life. You're not going to save souls if you can't get yourself aligned with the divine will. And likewise, you can't be a good receiver country of migrants unless you take care of your own people. It's just common sense. I don't know why this is such a hard thing, like for people to get around their head, right? It's perfectly fine to say, I want more migrants, but then, or I want a quicker process. I want a humane process. I want the single mom in Guatemala who wants to work for a hotel in Miami to go on the internet, put in her identity documents, and in 6 months be told, yes, you're provisionally cleared, and now you're on the list. And depending on where would they have a slot for you or what the order of priority of the nation's needs are, you'll move up and down that list. Here's your number. Here's your estimated waiting time. That's all humane. But that initial application to be just surface level vetting, that should only take like 6 months. And then that would allow people to be able to plan their life. They're not on a waiting list for 6 years without any hope. Then they know they're on the list, that they're going to be able to come on a visa. And then if they keep themselves contributive and they don't go to jail, then they have a path to a green card. That's stuff that people could, debate or say, well, you know what, I don't like that idea. I like this idea, or, whatever. There's realms where we can disagree on this, and there's perfectly fine room for criticism of the existing system. But what isn't fine is when people advocate breaking of the law. That is a real problem. Either law means something or it doesn't. If you don't like the law, you change the law. Simple as, we can't change it because then that's your problem. It exists. The system exists for that. You could reform that. Like there's a couple people that have said, we got to stop passing these bills with like 6,000 pages. It's better to pass 100 bills that are 2 pages long, right? Because at least then the act that you voted on is actually titled what it's actually about. Go figure. Imagine a law actually named after what it's supposed to be, so that people can look up and see who voted for it and the like. but they throw all this stuff in and as a dog's breakfast. And, there's no accountability that way. And plus, you can never get any change done, any effective change. So the kicker is that all this idea that I see, CNN and MSNBC promote, it serves this globalist agenda perfectly. And Leo's up to his neck. Think about it. What's the fastest way to eliminate national sovereignty? You erase the borders. What's the fastest way to destroy organic cultures that might resist centralized control? You flood them with incompatible populations faster than a simulation can occur. And what's the fastest way to make people desperate for strong centralized authority to manage the chaos? You have to create the chaos first. And that's what's going on in the UK. They are actually proposing a digital ID to track everybody. And they're doing it to solve a problem that they themselves caused. They caused the problem. They're like a fireman who starts a fire so that he can put it out. And so we can't give into this stuff. This is ridiculous. And the church should be standing for the ordinary person. In Telford, England, all the churches were silent. The Anglican said nothing. The Catholic said nothing. There was a whole bunch of little girls hurt. Cops didn't do anything. Councilmen didn't do anything. Churches were silent because they didn't want any backlash on these disadvantaged groups in their head. Meanwhile, I mean, you do realize what St. Bernard of Clairvaux or James Matamoros would say, right? About all of this, unbridled de-Christianizing of our countries. So anyway, and I'm not saying that it's the migrants' fault. It's in many cases it's not. These are real people with real struggles, and we should have compassion. But we're not talking about individual cases here. We're talking about the system and their effects. The idea that someone had a video on the other day. It was very clever. I wish I clipped it for you. And they basically pointed out that the left is very different than what a lot of people think. The lower people, the poor people, or the uneducated, or the basically like college educated people, they are taught that the left is about social justice and helping the poor and helping the disadvantaged. But the elite left understand. They have a different set of rules, you see. They understand that they have to collapse the system in order to get control. So they use the poor as a prop. And my concern is, I don't know whether the Vatican is composed mostly people that are just being tools of the Luciferians, or whether they're neck deep in it. I hate to say it, I think they're neck deep in it. I really do. Some of you might have read Malachi Martin. So you want to read him about Cardinal Bernardine and Cardinal McCarrick. I think these guys are, there's a cardinal in DC world. Look up how much money he's getting. They go on there about preferential option for the poor. And, millions, like 6 million total, 2 million payments. And then Cardinal Pell, who was to clean up the Vatican Bank and sort that out. He goes to Australia for a visit. Mysteriously, a number of millions of dollars get wired to a private security firm. Next thing you know, he's in jail on trumped up charges. He gets eventually exonerated. But the point is, no one can explain what that money was for. But it was just so coincidental that, and they use this to, allegedly buy off government officials and the like. So I don't know. Nothing would surprise me. I see all this stuff. I mean, some of you watched Tulsi Gabbard in her latest revelations of what went on in the last couple of years. If true, and she's an ex-Democrat, and if it's true, holy mackerel, man, our civilization is craving for decent leadership, decent spiritual leadership, especially, so that we can form the good secular leaders to be virtuous men and women, rather than members of this Borg. The UN has explicit migration compacts pushing for freedom of movement as a human right. And the World Economic Gathering talks openly about the fluidity of populations for their economic models. And the institutional church is providing the moral cover for it all. One hand is washing the other. It's calling anyone who questions the pace or scale of migration lacking in mercy or charity. Allegedly, the reports are, and some of you saw this, that Leo told the American bishops to basically do whatever he can against the Trump administration. What is this? He's cleaning up our cities so they're safe to live again. You know, it's ridiculous to me. Why are these people siding with the criminal? Because the guy makes mean tweets? It doesn't make any sense. What about the mercy for the working class communities that see their wages suppressed and their dollar being inflated away to nothingness, their social cohesion destroyed, their neighborhoods made unsafe, their children's schools overwhelmed? What about mercy for the third generation citizens who played by the rules, who waited on the lists, who waited in line, they assimilated, and now watch others bypass the system entirely and tear down the country to make it like the countries they escaped from? What about mercy for the nations who spent centuries building functional, high-trust societies that are being dissolved in decades with the church's blessing and permission? It's not mercy. This demolition disguised as virtue. And it fits perfectly with this Borg cube agenda. Erase distinctions, eliminate borders, make everyone equally dependent on global management systems. Prepare to be one indeed. So, Felix, do you have any thoughts on this at this point?
I think no, not actually. No, we do have tons of comments though.
Okay, should we take a little break on that?
Yeah, let's see. Let's see what we got here.
I wrote a bunch of notes. You know, I have 10 pages of notes. Don't worry, I'm not going to read all 10. I got 10 pages of notes, and I'm looking through this, and I was like, nah, I already covered that. So
right.
I just started page 4.
Let's see what we got here. So we have Father Haga. This was from earlier on. He says, agree, disagree was common practice when I was growing up too. Same here. You know,
if we discovered that again, wouldn't that be great? Like, and really mean it. Really mean it. Like, I don't mind if people disagree with me. I'm a very opinionated guy, but I also am tolerant of other people's opinions. Just make your case. And if I disagree, like, help me understand. I'm not a stupid person. You know, you just have to make your case. And I've changed my mind over a good argument.
Yeah. I don't know. Same here. And then I don't care how you cut the cake. Those look like Borg cubes.
Yeah. They do. Now, yeah. Actually, Bishop Haygood probably knows more about this stuff than I do. Well, maybe yes, maybe no. But my understanding is Islam itself has this large cube they sort of march around.
Oh, so yeah. The big black cube. Yeah. Some say the big black cube of Saturn, which if you look that up, that gets into really dark places. I don't know. Yeah, Muslims do not say that if I'm right. But also, this just reminds me of a line from a movie A Full Metal Jacket.
Right.
And Gunnery Sergeant, he looks at Gomer Pyle and he says something to me. He goes, "You are so ugly. You could be a modern art masterpiece." And that's exactly what I think of when I see those Borg cubes. You know what I mean? Like, it's really sad. And go Dale.
Hello, Dale.
Oh, Dale. He says, follow the money, of course, especially when we get into these world economic groups.
Right. Well, and it's so hard, right? Like, because at the end of the day, we don't know where a lot of this stuff goes, you know, and it'll be interesting to see as the world moves towards this crypto stuff and digital currencies, whether it's going to be easier or harder to hide for the elite anyway.
Right. Let's see. At the end of the day, surrendering the tiara was a grave mistake.
Absolutely.
Okay, this goes
good. Absolutely. So Paul VI, he surrendered the tiara, and that's a symbol. That's a special hat that the Pope would wear. It looks like a crown with three crowns on it. And when he surrendered it, no Pope has taken it up since. And when he surrendered it, that's a symbol of the church's temporal authority, its influence on the secular order. And
did he comment on that? Did he have a response to why?
Yeah, he said it was time for the church to be basically the church of the poor. He was going to sell the hat. And it's cute because there's these little old nuns that make new tiaras for every pope, and none of them ever wear them, right? Like they've made a bunch since, but even Francis got one. But the thing is it's just considered something old-fashioned, and no one's going to use it again. But I'm really struck, you know, when Paul VI addressed the UN, he did so from a subservient position. And I think that was a real error. I understand in a sense that people can talk themselves into thinking it's a humility. It's not a humility. You know why? It is, you have no right to deprecate the office that you hold. If you can't if you can't do the duties of the office that you've been given and you hold, you resign and make way for someone who can. So that would be my position on Paul VI, is that he failed his duty. And regardless, there's some that debate whether he was even Pope, but let's assume that he was. If so, he failed in his most basic duties of the office. And that's a real shame.
That's right. Let me see. Father Hagen said there's a very obvious schism in the Roman Catholic Church. Strickland, Schneider, Sarah, Zen, and like 3 or 4 others versus the Lavender Mafia.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. And I'm hoping that over time that these men, I won't mention who, but one of those men is at least open to independent movements that share the same faith. And actually, I think even 2 of them would be. So the thing is that the time has passed for us to worry. Like we're dealing with, do a lot of these people in power even believe in the Holy Trinity, right? So when you're dealing with that, what does schism even mean? So what I'm saying is people are saying, oh, well, you're outside of the church. Well, so was Athanasius. So, Joan of Arc died on the bad opinion of the church, and she was rehabilitated and made a saint later. Vincent Ferrar, followed an anti-pope. He's a saint. He God knows the heart, but also the church in her wisdom understands that under extremis, they're going to measure the holiness of someone on whether they did it to serve God. And so the thing is that I don't know how you can, it's getting harder and harder to remain in the church administratively, because they're just getting weirder and weirder, and they're asking people to do things contra fide. So, everybody has their line, but if the Pachamama didn't convince you, what will, right? So people sort of rationalize it. They say, oh yeah, it was just one bad decision, and that's not really the teaching of the church. And well, yeah, but most of your bishops believe in it. So at what point does it become, how much arsenic can I put into my, my chocolate milk before it's poison and not chocolate milk, right? But yeah.
But
once we get there, Felix.
All I know is that when I hear Lavender Mafia, I just
yeah. Yeah.
All right, so let's see.
I did one. Oh yeah, okay. Side note.
No. What were we? I didn't mean to. What was your thought?
I actually did a so if you look at my Twitter stream, I'm trying to remember what the parent. Oh, I remember what it was. I said, so Novus Ordo Watch said, what's with Leo the 14th, Robert Prevost, what is with him and appointing all these gay guys? Like, it basically said something to that effect.
Yeah.
And all I said was, I was in a mood, and I just said, why do I have the feeling that in my younger years that Prevost and I would be going to different bars? And I was just stirring the pot. But then if you can find that tweet, I edited the scene from Police Academy, and I put a different background of the rainbow, and I did it underneath. So you might, I'm an amateur, a very amateur editor, but I did do that, and it's like 4 seconds long.
I got it.
Stupid, but
I got it right here. Hold on. I just found
okay,
it.
here we go. Yeah.
Hold on.
I don't know if we'll get in trouble with copyright or not. It's only there we go.
So why do I get the impression that in our younger years that Bob Prevost and I wouldn't have walked into the same bars? And I got it.
Yeah. That's just my sense of humor, folks. I know some people find it disrespectful if it loads. Yeah. So after Felix plays this,
you were country.
It's gonna load, but I'll give you my suggested antidote in 6 easy points. There we go. Yeah, so the scene, the context of this, there used to be this show, I'm dating myself, I'm aging myself, and I had a friend of mine, actually he became a police officer, which is kind of cool, but he lived on my block, and he loved movies, and we'd go to the theater together. And how old would I be? I guess I'd be around 11 or 12. There was a series of movies. I don't even know how many they made. They made a bunch of them. I mean, every year we went to the Police Academy.
Police Academy? Yeah.
Yeah.
We got up to like part 8, I think. It was like Mischief in Moscow was like the last one.
And I assume they always had the Blue Oyster. They had to. It was kind of tradition. So the idea is that, you know, 2 uptight straight guys would go into this, you know, bar not knowing what they were getting into, and the lights would come up and they would see all these crazy guys, and they would always have
village
the same
people.
Yeah, right. It just became the joke was the music and the fact that the poor guys were grabbed and they were danced with, whether they wanted to be danced with or not. And it was just kind of fun.
You know what though, Father? Guys, if you have not seen the original Police Academy, part 1, it is actually it you know, like this phrase gets thrown around a lot, but that movie could have come out this year and it would have been relevant. It's literally about DEI hires, you know, like because they didn't
really?
They wanted the whole concept of the movie was hiring like these lower than average people, right? That's, you know, if you know they had the black timid, you can't go in there, you know what I mean? And then you had Mahoney, who was like a felon, as well as Winslow, and you know, and it was about it's about DEI hiring the police academy.
I don't know. I bet you some of our viewers have the same thing as me. I'm kind of scared at looking at stuff that I used to like as a kid, because every time I do, I'm just like, what? I like that? You know, it's almost like the memory of it's better. But anyway.
Well, the jokes still work. It's still actually a really good movie. I recommend it. I recommend it highly.
I you know, up on that.
Yeah. All right. So let's see. Lee says, a side note, the school site says the live stream happening 22 hours. So sorry.
Did I put it on the wrong day? Well, that's weird.
Probably.
You know, that site, we use the school. I may change the community site eventually, but I have a mixed bag with that. Some people swear by it. It doesn't seem to like me for different stuff I want to do with it. But I think Father get a little bit more, hang out there a little bit more.
Yeah, I think Father Hagen's was laughing
at the video.
YouTube deciding to curse at us, which was hilarious.
Guys, you gotta laugh or you're gonna cry, right? At the way the world's gone crazy.
I was mortified, just to be clear.
What's that, sorry?
I was so mortified when the YouTube decided to act up. But anyway, okay.
Oh yeah, no. What I'm getting at is that, you know, it's actually something like I laugh at myself. Felix and I make fun of ourselves, and you know, if people get offended at all this stuff, it's kind of like. Well, it's a good litmus test for people I don't want to hang out with. If you're going to get offended at every little thing, right?
Yeah, you know, and again, so Louis C.K. he had this joke that I was listening to the other day, and he said something along the lines of about like him about cursing, saying bad words or whatever. And he goes, you know, because of the profession he's in, he doesn't just tell his kids that those are bad words. He goes, look, there are no bad words. Good words are bad words. You know, it's all about, this is what you do. You go when you want to use those words, you take a look at the person that you're going to say it to, and you try to figure out if they're the type of person that would be okay with you using that word or not.
The funny one I've got about the funny sort of trope or scene, and it's been done in a number of different shows and fictional circumstances, is the Wheel of Fortune, where, you know, the person's in the final thing and they've got to guess the word, and of course there's 2 options, right?
Yeah.
And they say the dirty word or whatever, or the off-color word, and the whole audience goes like horrified. And then then someone goes over and they flip the letter, and it's just like, you know, a nice innocent word, and the guy looks like an idiot. But it is kind of funny because you can imagine
that was a great episode.
Under stress. Well, more than one show's done this since, right? Like, and it's also become a meme, you know. So it is kind of funny. It's kind of like all this stuff's pretty funny. Actually, eventually, when Felix and I get going here, I'm gonna have these little things that he can just play every once in a while. But I got Montgomery Burns and his tartar sauce that had to be done.
Oh,
so exactly. So okay. That's why we have. Okay, I'll let you read them.
Oh yeah. Father Higgins says that's why we have 54-page resolutions at Synod rather than one 500-page resolution.
God love you. See, you're a braver man. See, my community is smaller, and this is one of the pluses. Like, oh my goodness. Like, I'm actually, some people would make fun of me and they'd say my tweets or my Substacks are as bad as this, but I don't. I'm long-winded, but But I don't know, man. It's like it's hard. I assume you're the good bishop was referring to when I was saying about laws should be brief and they should be, titled after what they're actually for.
Yeah.
I've never been good with committees and stuff. I'm just, it's so bad when I was in the military, we used to have, and some of you will identify with this if you work for government, you'd have meetings that were about having meetings. And nothing drives me no more nuts. And so now I'm the opposite extreme. It's like someone will say, "Can I have a meeting for this?" And I'm like, email me. I don't want to go to your meeting.
Yeah. Call my secretary and we'll work out a day where we can figure out what day we'd be free. And then we'll pencil that in.
Okay, now we're gonna go through some comments. If you want to hear my funny meeting story, I'll tell I'm very, it still amuses me after years, but I don't want to ruin the comments. And I have to give you the antidote to the problem I gave you too. So, but shall we go through the comments and then I'll ask if you want to hear the story.
That's right. And Joshua, which we've been seeing him a few times. That's, I think, our liberal friend.
Yeah,
Welcome back.
I really appreciate him here because he actually disagrees with me respectfully, and I love that. It's good.
Yeah, no, he's actually pretty cool dude.
Bathwater. So, Joshua, thank you for keeping us from drinking our own bathwater.
So that would be the Kaaba? I don't know.
Is I think he's referring to the big cube.
Oh, okay.
Is that the name of it?
Yeah, probably. Let me just look that up.
You don't want Felix and I toss around a word like that, Joshua, because people get they think we were talking about something else totally different.
It is. There you go. The center black cube.
Very good. Cheers to you for knowing that, and I did not. I know that they call the pilgrimage the Hajj, but I didn't know what the cube was called, and I don't know the significance of the cube. I mean,
I've heard it's a meteor. I've heard all sorts of weird stuff.
It's pretty impressive engineering wise. Like that's a big cube.
It's a big cube. Then you get into when you get into the black cube of Saturn, this is like when things kind of go off the rails. But
right.
I invite you guys to look that up on your own time for sure, and it will be a fun dig. Father Higo said yes, it's called the Kaaba, and it's in Mecca, Saudi Arabia. All kinds of weird stories around it. Yep.
Right.
I don't know what candlesticks to say. Sorry,
Wouldn't
boss.
it be something if it was where we would find all those mismatched socks the dryer takes from us?
They're all there, right?
They're all there.
That'd be great.
Could be.
Now, Father Haygood, this is our last comment. If anyone else wants to chime in. I know which one you're talking about, and I've been trying to get a hold of him for years. I don't know. He said this about 10 minutes ago. 12 minutes ago.
Well, okay. So should I tell my funny story? Or should I go with the antidote here?
Yeah, go with the funny story.
Okay, here's the funny story. So, guys, this is why you don't want me on any of your committees. Bishop Haygood will never want me as an advisor on one of his committees because it would not go well. Because here's the thing. I was nagged. I shouldn't say most. A good percentage of my parishioners at the church that I take care of on Sundays. I have mixed duties. I have priests in all the parishes, but I still go up on Sunday to the parish that I'm closest to, and probably always will because I'm just sort of connected to that parish and the people there. But anyway, I had all these folks coming to me, and they were coming from the modern church, and they're used to things being different, right? And they have me a fuddy-duddy, like I won't let certain hymnals and I won't let certain, it has, if it's after 1960, you really got to sell me on it because I'm going to be, distrustful. So these well-meaning ladies that came over from the new church, they said, we need a committee. And I don't do committees. Well, no, we need a decoration committee for the church because it's Advent and Christmas coming. And I said, well, we don't have committees, and no, we don't need one. We've run for many, many years, decades without a committee for decoration, and we'll be fine. But I could tell I was sort of hurting their feelings, and it was,
right.
Boy. So anyway, they kept at it and they kept at it and they kept at it. And they were asking other people around me who they figured, were more close to me. And I was always getting asked, do you think the ladies would really like to have this meeting for decoration? And I'm like, oh my goodness, you guys are driving me nuts. I'm going to do it. Right. So I said, okay, here's the deal. I said, after Wednesday daily mass, which was at noon, and it was like, I don't know, second week in November. So we had like a couple weeks before Advent. I said, we are going to have the Immaculate Conception, the name of the church, the Immaculate Conception decoration, Advent Christmas decoration briefing. Now, and before I could even say briefing, they were like celebrating. I was like, oh my goodness, like I didn't know you guys are that deprived. You like meetings that much, right? Because I can't stand them. So they're all like, I was so happy, so happy. All right. So I had to calm them down, and I said, it's a briefing. It's not a committee. I'm going to brief you on the decorations. So I show up on the appointed day, and I've got a room full of people. The whole coffee area, Felix, is full. Okay. And most of them have like little zip up, like note taking, and they're all there, and they're all excited, and they're all eager, and they all got their pen and paper like I'm a teacher coming out. And I had a projector from my old secular life, and actually a nice, you can put PowerPoint slides on it, and I put up the screen, and it said Immaculate Conception, Advent / Christmas briefing. And keep in mind, some of these people drove a half hour, whatever there, but I mean, I warned them, I'm not a committee guy, and you're going to get the briefing that it's the best of my ability. So they're all there. And I said, welcome to, we began with a prayer. Welcome to the Immaculate Conception, Advent, Christmas briefing. This is the current sanctuary. I clicked the remote, and there was a picture of the sanctuary. And they're like, yeah. And I said, this is the Advent decoration. Click. And it's the same sanctuary, but with the Advent wreath and a candle lit. And I think I had some boughs or something on the communion rail or something. And then I clicked the next one, and then it said the end. And then I said, thank you for attending the Immaculate Conception decoration briefing. Fuck off. And it was priceless because everybody's just mouths are all open.
Well, right. Not what they wanted.
But that is the story that captures my engagement with meetings the best.
Right.
And also my humor. And again, keep in mind, I did not inflict this on this was I was harassed for weeks for this.
Yeah. Yeah, no, but what a way to nip it in the bud though, and
well, like, I mean, but see, okay, so some of you won't know. Some of you, if you're not traditional Catholic, you won't get the joke in a way, okay? Because the thing is, modern churches, they right after Thanksgiving, there's trees, there's Santas, there's reindeer, there's all this crap, right? That has nothing to do with Christianity. And tradition, Advent's a penitential season. So everything is kind of sparse intentionally, except for this Advent wreath. And then on Christmas, then you go all out. It's like the Griswold Christmas. You decorate. So the minute you're, we basically do the mass, the vigil of Christmas. As soon as we do that, in practice, I think it's actually the rules probably, I think after Vespers, but I suppose, but we do it just after the mass. And then we decorate everything. And then traditional Catholics keep it all up until Candlemas, or, you can scale back after Epiphany. But we go all out like till February 2nd, essentially, celebrate Christmas that long. And it's so out of sync with the way the world does it, because the world starts celebrating at Thanksgiving, and then 26, everything's wrapped up. So, so that'll give you a little context if you're wondering, like, why wasn't there any decoration? It's just because we don't. I mean, you can put boughs up and some simple stuff like some white lights or whatever. That's fine to do a little bit. But, none of this Griswold family Christmas where we've got reindeers and trapeze and Santas and no. Yeah. I had a friend of mine. Okay. I got another funny story for you. This is great. I'm going to, so I have a friend of mine. He used to run the Indult parish. So a Latin mass community, and he had to share it with an ethnic parish. And one day he comes in to, Advent, And there's no room for his altar servers. There's Christmas trees everywhere. There's Christmas trees. It completely filled the sanctuary. And he's like, oh, this isn't going to work because what am I going to do with all my altar boys? So he went to the pastor and they agreed and they talked about it. They explained sort of, okay, well, we're sharing the space. So what can we do to solve the problem? And what they decided to do is that the Latin Mass pastor, he was going to decorate the inside. He was going to be in charge of the inside decorations. And the ethnic pastor was going to be in charge of, the outside decorations. So my friend tells the story, and I laughed till tears came out of my eyes. Everything was fine until one day he went out for dinner. He comes home, and this was suppose the Latin Mass. He drives around the corner, and he sees whirligigs and elves and sleighs and reindeer and all the stuff outside the church. It was all lit up like the Griswold family Christmas. And then what happened was he says, and I was fine until he said, then I saw the big inflatable 2-story inflatable dinosaur holding a present.
Yeah, right. That's how far we've come.
Well, that's how far we came. And of course, he tells a story far better than me. And I have tears come my eyes. My lungs are hurting from the laughing. And, and I get hiccups and and that of course makes everybody laugh, because now I can't stop with the loud hiccups and it went bad. So, okay, let me tell you the antidote and then we'll take some more questions. So what do we do with all this stuff? Sorry for the little vignette. One time we had a viewer come in and Felix, remember, someone came in and they said, what's this got to do with insert title here? I forget what we were talking about.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely nothing. We got in a rabbit hole. All right.
Oh, we're so guilty of that.
Yeah, it's true. So anyway, I'd say the antidote is first, we remember who we are. So, we're Catholics, and this will apply to some Protestant traditions too. We're at least baptized Christians together. We're not citizens of a global community who happen to have some Christian flavored opinions. We're members of the mystical body of Christ, and his kingdom is not of this world. Second, we remember what our mission is, making saints. Everything else is negotiable. Third, we recover the virtue of prudence. Prudence isn't cold-heartedness. It's wisdom about means and ends. It's asking not just what feels merciful and but what will actually produce good outcomes for souls and societies. So mercy without prudence is just sentimentality, and sentimentality can kill. It can lead souls to hell. Fourth, we refuse to be gaslit. So when you hear these documents and these speeches and something in your gut says, that doesn't sound Catholic, it sounds Marxist, then you trust that, okay? You're not being uncharitable. You're not being judgmental. You're exercising the sensus fidelium that comes from your baptism. So fifth, we build. So this isn't about complaining or checking out. I mean, we have to all vent and we have our humor and stuff, but it's about creating alternatives. So try not to, and this is pot calling kettle black here, folks, right? Because I don't always do this myself. But try not to give something negative without giving a proposed solution. They said in the Navy, when you brief the captain, if the junior officer briefs the captain, it was always fact recommendation. So you would tell him what was going on, and then you would say your proposed solution to handle it. And that's how I always dealt with my archbishop, is fact recommendation. And if he didn't take it, then he would teach me something. So it was a win either way. So the thing is that small communities, we can create alternatives. Small communities can live the faith authentically, and teaching the next generation what Christianity actually is. So Christianity is in many respects being so radically different from the world that we become living refutations of this globalism and this mixed religion, this pseudo religion that's trying to gaslight everybody into it. And sixth, and this is crucial, we do this all with a toxic self-righteousness that plagues some communities, right? You're on slippery ground if you think that only your group is right and every other group is wrong, rather than seeking instead, Lord, what do you want of us? All right. God will use a whole bunch of different organs in the body for this restoration. So I try to avoid, unless someone's attacked me, I try not to attack people by name. There are some exceptions to that. Like if you're a symbol of a school of thought, like Prime Minister Carney, I may or may not like him in person, but he symbolizes a type of governance that I find horrible. And likewise, Elizabeth Warren. Elizabeth Warren is, I mean, I probably agree with her on a couple of different things in terms of protection for the ordinary person, but her misrepresentation of her ancestry, and I myself have, Aboriginal ancestry. You wouldn't know it from looking at me, but certainly more than she does, and so I find her appropriation of that in order to secure a position at Harvard and other positions to be abhorrent. I'm against DEI, but if you're going to have it, then it shouldn't be for liberals to assume that they do. Remember, Felix, there was somebody up in Idaho or Washington State or something, Denziel or something her name was. She was basically someone that put a lot of tanning oil on and then self-identified as black.
Oh, Rachel Dolezal.
Yeah,
Rachel Dolezal. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And
So
this is what the funniest part is, right? Because transracialism makes more sense than trans.
Yes. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because race is on a spectrum.
Right. And especially 100%. if there's a certain part of your like all of us are basically mutts, right? We have a bunch of we have a whole bunch of cultures we could
absolutely. Now I am not saying that Rachel Dolezal is right in trying to claim to be African American. I get that.
Well, okay, well actually, you know what? There's a whole show on that. No, but I mean there is a point though, Felix, because if self-identity is the standard, then she did nothing wrong.
She did nothing wrong.
So that's what I'm saying is that they identify their own square circles with her, right? Because if you self-identify, it's like there's been some jokes about this, some non-left memes on this. Like basically someone comes in and they get in the elevator and someone growls at them and they just, well, I identify as whatever, right?
Yeah, like, leave me alone.
Leave me alone.
Right.
And so, but it's it gets a bit ridiculous. And anyway, I don't have any dislike or whatever for her. I'm actually just using her as an example of you have to choose one or the other. Either it's okay that you can basically identify to be whatever community you want. I would say if that community welcomes you, sure. I mean, if I lived in Barbados, I think I'd get along with everybody there, and they want to consider me Barbadian. Hey, I'm okay with that. And likewise, it's I just say whatever the rules are, they have to be equally applied. This idea that there's one set of rules for one group and one set of rules for another, that's not good. Okay, so just to finish this off, and then I'll just say, the institutional church might be dazzled by these gleaming promises from the UN of global unity and managed futures and taking care of all the poor with central government, but we don't have to be, because first of all, it never works, folks. Like, here's the thing: 90% of the stuff that the Leos of the world talk about in social justice and environment, we probably could all agree with if their stuff actually worked. Like, if you want a real wake up call, what works? You Google this name, Thomas Sowell, ex-leftist. Thomas Sowell. That is one of the few famous people I would love to meet. If anybody ever is a personal friend of Thomas Sowell and you can arrange for me to have a cup of coffee with that man, he's the only famous person that on this planet that I would make a real effort to go and meet. He's like a very grandfatherly figure, but he's just such a wise man. He's such a courageous man and really unappreciated. I mean, he doesn't get half the credit for what he should, I think. One of the wisest men in America. Anyway, Google him. He's an economist, and I'm a big fan. And I don't know if my friend Jay's watching, but Jay and I became friends over our mutual admiration for Dr. Sowell. Basically that's it, Felix. So we
got some more. We got some more
comments, or shall we carry on with some questions?
Do the cube equals the pyramids? I don't know. Yeah, now we're getting into like real esoteric.
We don't know where they come from, Lee. We don't know.
Yeah,
I mean,
like,
there's probably lots of theories. There's probably a Y-Files episode on it. I don't know.
All right. So I listen to Tinfoil Hat with Sam Tripoli. All right. Now I like the guy a lot. I disagree with him, especially when he starts getting into his Christianity. Like the other day, he just said something like, "Oh, you know what? I find Gnosticism really interesting. I think I like it." And I'm like, "No!" Like it's like all this progress, right? And then he had like Jay Dyer come on, who's Orthodox, like really break down the religion. Yep. And it's just like in one ear out the other. But anyway, all that to say, he did some coverage of the Black Cube of Saturn, Lee. So check that out if you want to get into a deep dive. That'll open up the avenue to other stuff. But it gets kind of dark. It's interesting. Check it out. Let me know what you think. I think when this Father Haygood is saying bishops. This is when you were talking about certain bishop that you don't want to name. He's pretty sure he knows what you were talking about.
If Bishop if Bishop Haygood ever wants to stir the pot, then just let me do the Advent briefing for them. It'll be great.
That's right. We got to get him back on the show. I don't know, like when
definitely
he's free.
Definitely.
Yeah.
We should probably do something on the Archbishop of Canterbury. I bet you he'd be up for that.
Yeah. You want to check your focus, Father, while you can.
Yeah.
Father Haygood says, I'm a Benedictine. Simple is perfect, right? Hey, right. Benedict, that was my confirmation name given to me by Father Meikle, right?
See, that's right. Well, see, the problem with me is my charism isn't that. It's jackass. So
you're being too mean.
You know what? It's endearing to some and horrific to others. But I just say, hey, you know what? Bishop Haygood can reach people that I can't, and vice versa in different organs in the body. But yeah, it's good.
I just did a thing on that.
See, there's even a philosophy. I think I told you guys this before. There's a philosophy of being the right kind of jackass because it's like a carburetor. It's the right mix of jack and the right,
Yeah, right. But like on the bright side, like I said, like I'm doing that one thing on the saints every day, whatnot. And like I think a few weeks ago, I want to say it was Saint Joe or Saint Joe's. It was I don't remember who it was, but he was known for levitating, but also for being
Capertino, Joseph Capertino.
Yeah, being very unclever. Like he wasn't the brightest bulb.
Well, that's John Vianney.
Okay, yeah. He was not the brightest bulb in the set. Not the coldest beer in the fridge, but very holy. He could levitate, and he's like a patron saint for.
I think it must be Capertino. You're thinking?
I think it was Capertino. I think actually, I'm pretty sure because I just did a thing on him a week ago or 2 weeks ago. But they say, hey, you don't have to be smart to be holy.
No, you don't. Listen, you can get to. I tell you know what. Here's something. There was somebody again, not my saying, but someone once said, "There's two political parties in the United States of America: the party of evil and the party of stupid." And and then you can guess which one's which. But what I said was, as I said, well, you can get to heaven stupid. You can't get to heaven evil.
Yeah, right. And then you have Capertino doing Saint Capertino. If I'm going to double check that name, but I'm almost positive that's what it was. But I thought that was wonderful.
See, you can interrupt me, Felix, anytime here if we get comments. But I'm just going to quickly go over. So this latest document that Leo came out with, I just wanted to give you some arrows in your quiver, I call them, just sort of if you've got people talking about them. So basically, I'll give you examples of the contradictions to the traditional order of Western Restoration that's found in the document. So the document emphasizes universal destination of goods over property rights primacy. It cites the Gaudium et Spes from Vatican II that persons in extreme necessity are entitled to take what they need from the riches of others. You got to be very careful with it phrased like that, right? Like, no one's going to think that a person feeding a starving child that stole a loaf of day-old bread is guilty of a mortal sin. But the way that's phrased, that's sort of like, well, the rich people have swimming pools, and I can steal a Learjet now or whatever. I mean, you got to be careful with stuff like that. Who decides what is extreme necessity?
Right.
And then the thing is, the document quotes St. John Chrysostom, not giving to the poor, stealing from them, defrauding them of their lives, because what we have belongs to them. There's heavy emphasis on the structures of sin, that language mirrors liberation theology and condemns meritocracy and sees only the successful as deserving. My school of thought is this: you help people up. You help people up. You train them to the standard. If it takes an extra 6 months for a certain person, like if you got someone that's grew up on a farm and they don't know a factory, or someone that knows a factory and doesn't know farming, they're going to have a learning curve. But you pull them up. You don't say, oh, well, it doesn't matter if you can't do the job right. You just take half the day off. No, if you've got a job to do, like clergy are a great example, right? None of us, like, even when you could have 20 years of seminary, you're not going to know it all when you get there. There's so many things that at best you know what you don't know. And so if you have to have a certain trust that God will give you what you need to achieve. And this notion of going against meritocracy, it's horrible. It's also can be very racist in the sense of what they call it racism of the low expectations. So I'm opposed to that. So then national sovereignty versus globalism. So the new document welcomes the United Nations. It says it's made eradication of poverty one of its millennium goals. Yeah, but what about giving credit where it's due? It was capitalist philosophy and systems and businesses that helped lift nations out of poverty. It wasn't the UN. So, the thing is, the UN is all a grift, right? You give money to the UN, what percentage of it gets the people? Migration language, where walls are built, she builds bridges. Well, here's the thing. How many refugees lives in the Vatican? They got walls. So, I mean, part of the problem is you got to walk your talk. No distinction between legitimate national borders and Christian hospitality. So every asylum seeker that is truly fleeing physical danger, they are entitled to welcome, right? They're not entitled to a free ride forever. I'm not saying that's what happens. I'm just saying, like, listening to some people, they just think, well, you just show up, you get free stuff. No. Britain's a lot worse for this than the United States is. No distinction between legitimate national borders and Christian. I already said that. The document frames migration as a near absolute moral imperative without prudential qualification. There is no acknowledgement of cultural preservation or national identity as legitimate concerns. St. Thomas puts love of country very high up after obligation to God and family. Social order and hierarchy. So Leo he rejects the idea that most of the poor are such because they do not deserve otherwise. And that is partially true. We can do much better in making sure there's equality of opportunity and the ability, like access to banking, access to low-cost energy, access to quality food that's healthy. So there are things we can do better as a civilization. So I agree with Leo on that. He implies traditional emphasis on virtue, industry, and prudence as secular ideology. I disagree 100%. So we are stewards not only of God's creation, which Leo would agree, we're stewards of our time and the attributes he gave us. If God gave you a gift in math, and you know somebody that needs help with their accounting or whatever, and you have the free time and you don't give it, then that's on, like, you are obliged to use your gifts for the betterment of others and in God's good service. So, and we have all unequal gifts, right? Some of you can catch a baseball, maybe the baseball hit me on the head. Some of you can land an airplane, some of you can't. You're gonna want the person that knows how to do that to do it. You want to say, oh well, Felix and I go up in an airplane and the pilot dies on us. Well, there's one of us that should land the plane. It's not Felix. So, I mean, in the same way, I'm not musical. Felix is, right? So there's different gifts, and I think that's the beautiful aspect of diversity. Is not diversity in values. It's not diversity even in cultures. It's diversity in sense of in a community. It's the diversity of ideas and attributes that's really awesome.
Diversity of talent.
Yeah, diversity of talent, exactly. So, they really have a hard time with meritocracy. The problem is that they just come across as Marxist idiots. It's like Pee Wee Herman with a hammer and sickle. So no discussion of subsidiarity. This is key. This is Leo XIII. This is the gift that Leo XIII and derivative have given the church. No discussion of subsidiarity, which is family, community, nation, international. Family, community, nation, international. And skips from individual charity to global institutions. Global institutions will, by their design, they will always have corruption. So we've got to, in the principles of subsidiarity, there are different kinds of Catholic communities, like early Knights of Columbus, Antigonish movement, Mondragon movement. There's a bunch of these organizations that were community-based nonprofits that were successful and they weren't corrupt. We don't need some super Borg controlling all the money and resources. Market economies, it denounces the dictatorship of an economy that kills, condemns ideologies that defend the absolute autonomy of the marketplace, and criticizes trickle-down economics. Well, here's the problem. I would agree with Leo that we don't want an absolute autonomy of the marketplace. There has to be some kind of accountability. We would probably disagree on what that accountability would look like. But criticizing trickle-down economics, well, again, the problem is you want to help pull people up. You don't want to. It is against the commandments of God to take another person's property and redistribute it through the power of the state. So this is the problem. What they go on about, or they try to take away people's inheritances and whatever like that. You got to do what you can to create equality of opportunity, not guarantee equality of outcome. The person that works harder and the person that takes more risks deserves the greater reward. Simple as. So Leo and I would 100% disagree with that. And most of the founders of the US would agree with me and not Leo on that. Speaks of invisible market forces with dismissive tone. Well, yeah, again, that's a whole show on that. Leo fails to acknowledge that free exchange of property rights have lifted billions from poverty. And that's my thing. He gives credit to the UN for this. It's not the UN. It's capitalism and non-socialist financial systems that have let people up out of poverty. Government does not produce revenue. Government redistributes revenue, and it takes a cut for the grift for all the people involved. Look at Solyndra. Look at the what they had up in Canada with all the sponsorship scandal and these energy projects. I mean, where does all the money go? And it's not to the poor people. So I really find that I know Leo doesn't intend it, but he uses the poor as a prop. And he uses them as cover for the John Kerrys of the world to plot and plan and rule the world, and no one even thinks of someone like that, right? Or the Mitt Romneys or there's a class of people that are plugged into these networks that you and I don't have access to. And the problem is the church aligns with these guys instead of the ordinary poor, and then has the audacity to say people like me, who are fighting for the freedom and the dignity of the ordinary baptized, that I am heartless because I sided with the capitalists over the communists. Well, the capitalists bring people out of poverty, albeit imperfectly. Communism is just enslavement unless you're friends of the leaders. So, I mean, you look at Hugo Chavez when he lived. Look what happened. Look at the distribution of wealth there. That's a socialist country. Look in Canada. How many families? There's like 11 or 12 families that control like 90% of the wealth, and the people they're facing empty shelves and expensive. They can't afford their power bill and their gasoline, and they're told that, oh, don't worry, windmills will take care of everything. Meanwhile, they're going to end up with rolling brownouts in 3 years. It's ridiculous. So, and then here's the other thing. Oh, hang on. He says so. One of the things Leo does is he says Christians can't limit faith to the private sphere, but then he limits this exercise of faith to leftist economics. And there is no application of his principle to defending the Christian moral order, marriage, life, right? He warns against Christian movements that show little or no interest in the common good. Well, what does he mean by that? I gather he supports, again, the lawbreaker, which I don't. And then one of the weirdest things you notice about the document is that look at the footnotes. It's all Francis. Like you just want to face plant in slow motion. Vatican II documents favored liberation theology frameworks presented as its settled teaching. There's scant reference to anything pre-1960. And there's no reference to the syllabus errors or quas primus, Christ the King, or traditional church teaching on the temporal order. I will give him now I'm going to say some nice things about him, then we'll return to comments and sign off. He acknowledges property rights exist by natural law. Thank you, Leo. You're right. He does acknowledge that church fathers teach almsgiving comes from your property, not common goods. So in other words, he understands that it's meant to be a voluntary contribution, not state. He distinguishes between ownership and use using a Thomistic framework. So that was pretty good. He says that the most important way to help the disadvantaged is a system and finding a good job. Leo and I agree on this. We want to create meaningful work. And this is where, like, maybe we could all put down our swords and try to think, what do we do with the AI revolution coming to give people meaningful work? So we need some smart people, regardless of our politics, regardless of our theology, to get together and come up with meaningful contributions for people. And I think it has to be grassroots. I think it has to be subsidiarity. I don't think you can order it from Rome or Ottawa or DC or Brussels. So he does reject pure welfareism in favor of human development through labor. So Leo and I agree on that. And he acknowledges that work gives dignity. And we agree on that. And what else do we agree on? See, I'd like to find things I agree with him on too, right? Because I give him such a hard time. I make those nasty little Blue Oyster videos. I got to throw the poor man a bone.
I know, right? We got
otherwise I'll be giving him the Advent wreath blessing. I would say that the real thing is, he's against pure materialism. He condemns the illusion of happiness derived from the comfortable life, critiques consumerism and throwaway culture. He warns against the wealthy elite, and so that's good. Being rich isn't bad. It just means you have resources that you are going to be held to account to how you stored them. And he rejects the idea that the church should only provide material assistance. So we agree on that. And he acknowledges the church's 2,000-year tradition of care, which is good. And he says the saints are presented as models, not museum pieces. So we agree on that. So, there's a mix of things I agree and disagree. I guess, it comes down to the thumbnail that you saw with the Borg. I'm just concerned that the track we're on is Lord of the World. That the church that he's building, my gut tells me that Francis was the hammer, and then Leo is going to be the caretaker, and then the next guy is going to come in with like another hammer. And who knows? Maybe I won't be around. Maybe you won't be around to see it. He might live a nice long time, and we might not see it. But I think those who think that without God's intervention, which I don't exclude, big institutional Christianity is in a world of hurt. It's in a world of hurt because with the social changes and the philosophical changes that are going to come with AI, I think the church has been a follower since the 1960s. It has not been there to lead. Even this business in the Ukraine and the Middle East, they sought out President Trump, not Francis or Leo, right? And this is not me insulting them. I'm just saying that the church no longer is seen as, I was so funny. Someone was putting on Twitter, oh, look at the gravitas, look at the power of the papacy that so did whatever. And it's like, no one cares. Like, I mean, seriously,
up, right? Yeah,
no one cares. I mean, if you, in the sense of the world, like really, like everyone's going to be like kind or respectful, but at the end of the day, do you think that Vladimir Putin or Donald Trump gives two craps what Leo says? No.
Right. No, they
nothing.
Do not.
I wouldn't if I was the president either, because I'd be listening to I would look at some of the stuff. He's Marxist. So it detracts from the message. And so if you can instead make it Christ-centered and then warm a heart so that someone would just dismiss, there is a command to take care of the less fortunate. It's not all wrong. What's wrong is throwing us all under the bus under some globalist Borg to take care of the poor. That's not how you solve that problem. You fix one problem and you create another six. And that's the reason why we've got to be smarter. And so self-owned corporations that we support and help and train people to be able to make something of themselves. We reward success. So I disagree with Leo on the merit. You know what? If you run a good business, you deserve financial success. You run a crappy business, you deserve failure. That's the way the world works.
That's the way
That's the way God created it. In heaven, we don't have to worry about it, but on earth, that's the way the rules are. All right, so we want to read the last couple comments, and we'll sign off. And by the way, guys, I'd say this before. When I'm looking up there, I'm not rolling my eyes at anybody. My clock's up there. I should put another clock down here, so I'm not looking like I'm rolling my eyes at you.
All right, so Father Haga says, I don't like meetings either, but as Vicar General and Archbishop of North America, I spend a lot of my time in meetings.
Well, there you go. I hear
you.
I avoid them like the plague.
Same.
I'm pretty good at it. I say to everybody, email me, or we'll do it on, have a quick chat in Zoom. And then someone said to me, I know Lee, if she's still on air, she'll be laughing at me. It's like, yeah, but I can't get a hold of you in email either.
I know, right?
Busted. No.
Whoops.
No, I'm just teasing. I have a weird sense of humor in case you guys haven't noticed, but anyway.
So Father Haga says there's only one race, but a million different cultures. Yeah, that's the truth. Lee says, can you explain your Aboriginal background? I feel like that's an episode in itself.
Well, once upon a time, there was an Aboriginal person who, found an Irish person attractive, and one thing led to another, and you get Aboriginal background. I'm sorry, Lee. I know. Okay. So how does this work? My cousin Kevin, he got a status card up north, but I don't. I'm not in. So I have two relatives. My maternal grandmother, and I have a brother who's very dark complected. So they're the only people but they're darker than a lot of a lot of folks that identify as various ethnicities. And so that'd be the only physical attribute. And I would say that one family member too, that the nose structure is more traditional native, so you notice. And it's just kind of neat how it sort of skips certain generations. So so I guess at least in one province of Canada, I could get a status card if I have that way it works, but I don't understand. It's a very complicated thing genealogy wise, I guess, what qualifies and what doesn't. And so I think my understanding is it would be my grandmother's parent, one of my grandmother's parents. And I think that's how it worked. But I'm not the genealogist of the family. I just know it's certainly in there, and it wouldn't have surprised me, to see it skip generations and just that little bit. And then most of my ethnicity is Scottish and Irish. Then my last name, Meikle, it's pronounced. It's funny. Someone did a show on one of my tweets, and they called me Meekley or Michael or whatever. And I don't mind. It's funny, but it's actually Meikle, or you pronounce it Mickle. And it's Gaelic for large amount. I'd love to tell you it's charm and wit or holiness, but my mother would say Blarney. But anyway, it means it's lowland Scot Gaelic, and really, and it's funny because in Scotland apparently we weren't considered real Scotsmen. We'd be considered Northern Englishmen, and the Englishmen would just consider us, rude Englishmen or just basically bad Scots. And then the Irish comes from my grandmother. So we're a lot of us are mixed, So I guess I'm mostly Scottish, Irish, a little bit English, a little bit of native.
Yeah, I'm all over the place. I won't even begin.
Well, yeah, yours is complex too, because of course a lot of people don't realize that before your family was in Cuba, like Spain is complicated.
Yep.
Spain is very complicated.
Oh yeah, Spain. We had Spain, Portugal, Africa. I mean, all of it gets in the mix. I mean, who knows?
Absolutely.
And Father Hagen, we have him in stitches, which is always awesome. And
I wish I knew. Do you know what he was laughing at?
This was from 1038, I think. So it was from your anecdote.
Oh,
all right, and Lee has the closing statement here. It says that's why it takes a village to raise a child. Well, how poignant, right?
Well, right, but we don't want Hillary's village, right? Not unless you're talking about Saint Hillary, doctor of the church.
Yeah, right.
Takes a village. It does. Unfortunately, they closed all the institutions, and now all the idiots are running around and they vote. On that note, folks, I really appreciate you spending a little time with Felix and I tonight, and we're getting through. We're a little less serious than we normally are, so if this is your first video with us, but we're just trying to have a little fun in a world gone mad, and also, just thank you for your prayers, and you have ours. And what a great time to be a Christian. What a really great time to be a Christian. You know, anybody can be a Christian in 1920, anybody be a Christian in 1948, but this time, wow, this is the time that saints are made. So I hope with God's good help, that's what happens to all of us. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost, amen. God our Father, we praise and thank you for all your gifts and all your benefits, and help us to see how to use these in your kingdom here on earth. And may you bless each one of us, inclining our hearts to your divine and holy will. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost, amen. God bless and protect you. I will see you next week. I haven't decided what the topic is, but you know what? If you have ideas, always feel free to put them in the comments, and Felix and I will consider it. Okay, God bless you.
Take care.